team are going through their own form of dealing with it, and then the rest of us here, fans, are just banging our heads against the wall going, why?
Well, yeah, and Lundqvist has played once this year. Once. In January. That's it.
What's that
and now
about?
You have 3 goalies. That's going to happen to somebody. I mean, and now you have the back-to-backs to Detroit, so you figure Shesterkin is getting one of those games, right? And then you give one to Hank, and then now Georgiev hasn't played for like 2 weeks. But the next game after that, shouldn't Shesterkin play again? Like, it's insane. And what I don't like about this whole thing too, another like issue that's sort of coming up now is that you're getting some Ranger fans that are getting frustrated with Lundqvist because he's not waiving his no move clause.
But we don't know that yet. We don't know that because, like I said, publicly, we're never going to know that, right? Management's never going to say that. Hank's never going to say that.
Yeah, but even if like that again, that conversation has it's just a perception. I mean, you see it out there on social media. You see a lot of people calling him selfish and this and that. So that's just another thing that's happening. Consequence of this 3-headed monster is now Lundqvist is being perceived by some, not all Ranger fans, but some as being sort of the bad guy here because, he's not going to waive his no move clause. Whether that's reality or not reality, that's just sort of what's happening out in social media. I know social media can be very, very toxic place sometimes, but, it's still happening. So that's another, again, consequence of what's happening with this 3-headed monster. And I think that's wrong. I mean, whether Lundqvist is saying, no, I don't want to move it or not, he sort of earned that. You know what I'm saying? It's not his fault the Rangers gave him the no-move clause. He earned it. And he has, he could exercise it or not. He's earned the right to do that. So, but it's sort of come up now. And it just bothers me that, all of this is sort of happening because, the Rangers literally don't have a plan right now. I mean, Quinn even said it like 2 weeks ago. They were saying after the one Georgiev's or his first start against the Islanders, after he gets that start, we'll figure it out. They haven't figured it out yet because it still seems as though they're just pulling goalies' names out of a hat at this point to see who goes in. So, look, I hope they can figure it out by the trade deadline. I mean, one of the names that's been out there as far as, a trade rumor with Georgiev is Kapanen, from the Leafs. And to be honest, I would make that trade like immediately. He seems like a young winger who, he scored like 44 points last year or something along those lines. He's probably going to be close to 50 points this year. Young kid, speed, hard shot. He's perfect. I think he would be a perfect fit for this team. Now, a lot of people on the Toronto end say he's way too much for Georgiev because Georgiev is basically a backup goalie right now. Again, because of the 3-headed monster, Georgiev is spending half the time in the press box. So now his value is probably going down, or he's being perceived as, a backup or a double backup at this point. So are you killing his value? So it's a mess.
Yeah, I mean, again, nothing coming out of obviously they haven't been practicing. I'm not sure when they come back, when their first skate is. And I apologize. I haven't looked in on any of the riders as far as when they're getting back on the ice here. But even the time that Hank has not been playing as far as, but I haven't seen anything. I'm just speculating here. Maybe there's a serious injury or something that Hank's going through right now that they don't want to, they don't want anybody to know about. And
I don't.
We're just trying. I'm just trying to put out different angles here, because
But he's been on the bench. You know what I'm saying? Like, they wouldn't put him on the bench. Like, what if they had to put him in if he was hurt? There's no way. No way.
It just might be a slight groin injury or something. No, again, I'm just trying to look at different angles here too, because in a lot of ways, as far as the norm of hockey, right? Most of the times, the only time you're pulling a 3-goalie system is if one of your guys is just really struggling and or somebody's injured, and that's what this is going on. I mean, as far as where the Rangers scheduling is at, where they've been playing. And, this system right now, how it works, how it affects, these 3 world-class, phenomenal netminders. And as far as getting gameplay, and again, like this team they had a spaced out schedule in the beginning. Now they hit this break here. I'm just trying to make some sense out of it. And obviously at the end of the day, we just have to sit back and watch the show and grab some popcorn. And we're sitting here figuring out, trying to figure out what's going on. And the guys who cover the team too, I'm sure it's just something that you just don't see too much. And then it would just make there'd be more light on the whole subject if, there really was a potential move here. But I think Hank is the big piece here because he's not playing, because of his age, because of his contract, and them squeezing Shesterkin in here in between that. And then any time that Shesty gets on the ice that takes away from Georgiev, it's very puzzling. I know it's getting, a little nauseating to continue to talk about this, and hopefully there'll be something that's going to happen here by, the end of February when this trade deadline comes up. But could you imagine, KD, if after the trade deadline, all 3 of these guys are still on the team? What are we going to do then?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Rangers, they may end up sending Shesterkin back, especially if, Hartford ends up in the playoffs just to get him, some postseason action, which I hope would be the plan if there is no goaltending trade at the deadline, which who knows if they would end up doing that. But I think that would be, a smart move by the organization. You probably have to get him down there sooner to get some regular season games in, down in the AHL before just like shoving him in the playoffs. But, hopefully that's what they're thinking. Look, as much as I'm criticizing it and just completely confused and baffled by the situation, look, I hope it works out. I mean, I'm not like rooting against it working out. I hope all 3 of them end up not letting up a goal for the rest of the year and we go on some like miraculous run. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But, look, hopefully it works out.
Bring up Adam Huska, too. What the hell? Make it a 4-goalie rotation. Let's see what Adam's got. All right, let's just put that on the shelf, and let's see who starts this weekend and everything else, and we'll come back to it next week when we have a little more fodder in the cannon to kind of go at. We'll have a couple of games as far as next week's concerned. Hey, look, Brooksy had a really good column, and I thought he broke down all the different situations for the Rangers, as far as possible trade scenarios and everything else. I know you looked at it too. What's your take here in terms of how Brooksy broke it down? And again, this is another side of it too, that unfortunately, where the team's at, where the team might be going. I think that tonight is the first time you think you've officially said they're not going to make the playoffs in a long time. So I guess we're all conceding to that it's not going to happen. So, but where do you think Brooksy was coming from, and whether you agree with him or not? I mean, I know we talked about this a lot last week. Because it's really all we can really talk about right now. But what's your take on Brooksy's column?
Yeah, I think he liked your idea of rebuilding the rebuild.
Yeah, where did you hear that?
I don't know. I think Brooksy listens to our show.
Hey, Larry, how you doing, buddy?
That's right. Hey, look, the Rangers, they are at a crossroads with this rebuild at this point. They need to look at these free agents, upcoming free agents. Kreider and Foster are the unrestricted free agents, and think to what are we going to do here? Do we want to give these guys longer term contracts? Do we think that they're going to be beneficial to this rebuild? When do we think we are going to be contending for the cup? And are these guys still going to be able to live up to a contract or produce at that particular point? And that's really what they have to decide at this point. And the same goes for the restricted free agents in Strome and D'Angelo and Georgiev. Do we want to give these guys long-term contracts? And could that potentially do to the rebuild going forward? Do we see Strome as being part of the answer in 2 to 3, 4 years? Or is at that point, he's going to be completely on the decline and useless to us at that point? So, Brooksy seems to think that the Rangers are going to do one last sell-off this year, which is basically going to include everybody. I mean, it looked like he was selling everybody. He was talking about Kreider and Foss and Strome and D'Angelo and Georgiev. Do I think they're going to get rid of all of them? Probably not. But, you know, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world if they did. Because I think it would the rebuild would take longer. I mean, you'll definitely get into the 3-4 year, maybe even longer. I mean, that's just crazy to even think about before they're contending for a cup, because then you really got to bring up some of these younger guys, the Lundqvists and the Condre Millers and even Kravtsov. You have to hope really turns it around and becomes the elite player we all hope he is, but that's going to take a little while now. So, does the Ranger fan base have the patience for that? Or when they get all these contracts off the books, are they looking to buy? Are they filling it in with more elite level talent now that they cleared out some cap space by getting rid of these guys? Do you bring in another guy on the level of a Panarin or a Trouba, that kind of signing? And maybe that accelerates the rebuild, So there's really a lot of different, again, JD and Gordon, they're really at a crossroads right now. And this deadline here, this is going to be the biggest spot of this rebuild to this point. And maybe when we look back in a couple of years, we may be looking at this trade deadline as what made or broke the rebuild. So it's big time for these guys. It's put up or shut up for these guys in a couple of weeks. And yeah, I'm glad I'm not in those seats, because that's a big decision there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And this is the unknown for us as fans here, in terms of watching the progression of this team and just kind of figuring it out. And damn, it's just like you wish they had been playing the last couple of days. This is what makes it more frustrating. I mean, we got to get back into the games here. We got to start seeing how these guys play a little more. And I know maybe in the big picture it doesn't really matter what Strome or Kreider does here, or a couple of these other guys. Like either they've, JD and Gordon have maybe looked at the long-term plan here, and they probably already figured it out. I mean, it might be a trip. I think it is funny, the rebuild of the rebuild. Maybe, it might be fun to see Vinny Lettieri up here and maybe, get Kravtsov. I'd actually have more fun right now seeing some new offense brought up, just to kind of, see some other kids skate around, with what we got up front right now, too. And sure enough.
But if they do get rid of all those, say they do get rid of all those guys, and Brooksy seemed to be of the mind that, it doesn't matter what the Rangers do over the next, 3 weeks leading into the trade deadline.
Yeah,
they're getting rid of these guys. They're not going to be, buyers at the deadline. Even if they go on a little bit of a run and get themselves within a couple of points of a playoff spot, they're still selling. All these guys are gone. And you know what? It's going to be an ugly final couple of months of the season. If Lettieri's out there instead of Kreider, and Hayek is back out there instead of D'Angelo, so it could get ugly. But again, you're bringing a Kravtsov up and hoping he makes it. Maybe Elias Anderson is back in the
send Capo down and bring Kravtsov up.
I think that we'll have that conversation later in the show on Capo, but yeah, it's I don't know if what happens over the next 3 weeks necessarily matters. I just don't. We've been saying all year that patience. JD is all about patience, and they're not gonna be buyers just because they think they can make the playoffs this year. Quinn talks about the playoffs and the players. I just think he has to say that. As a coach, like, of course we're here to make the playoffs. He's not going to say, well, we're here to lose and maybe get a better, draft pick, or, we're just here to go, get these guys, some development, even though he probably should. I think Ranger fans realize that that's what's going on. We're pretty smart. So yeah, it's like I said, it's big decisions to be made with these guys. And And it'll be tough, man, when you see a guy like Kreider or Foss being traded, and Strome has sort of been like the lightning rod this year. Where you